pleasure it is to bring in Sean Spicer on a day like today. The last time we talked to Spicer, who was the first White House press secretary for Donald Trump, Spicer said, I'm a little envious because we didn't have the wind at our backs the way this Trump administration does. Oh, if I could go back and do it again and have this kind of vibe. I can only imagine being press secretary after a night like last night. Sean Spicer, good morning. Welcome in.
Hey, good to see you again. Thanks for having me.
What a home run speech last night, and the Democrats couldn't have behaved worse. I mean, it was like historic on two fronts. A remarkable speech and a equally remarkable, but for a different kind of remarkable, reaction by the opposition party.
Yeah, we could spend a whole show going through both. I think the president really laid out the case last night as to what he's doing and what he wants to do. I used the people in the gallery in a way that, in an effective way that no one ever has, which you got to expect from a guy like Trump. And then the Dem response was shameful. And it was embarrassing, which I think was great because, to your point, it's a twofold. People were obviously hearing what President Trump had to say and then seeing the alternative. Al Green there lying on the floor of the House saying that the president was cutting Medicaid and he didn't have a mandate to do it, which he isn't. And, it made them look stupid, petty, and silly. I do hope that DOJ cuts whatever arts and crafts class that they offer them to create those little silly signs that they have. So on both fronts, Chris, it was an embarrassment for them. The president, he almost was like baiting them because he had 80-20 issue after 80-20 issue that the American people, I think, are on board with, and they wouldn't even stand to applaud a kid with cancer. What does that say about where your party is? It was embarrassing. And then, by the way, I was laughing because I would tweet this stuff out and these stupid reporters would be like, most party opposition don't stand. I'm like, you weren't standing for him, you moron. It was for a kid with cancer or for a young woman that got traumatic brain injury because she got hit in the head. I mean, like, they wore pink because they wanted to align themselves with women after they just voted to allow men to take over women in men's sports. It was embarrassing. I mean, they literally are a pathetic party right now.
Yeah. Or wearing yellow and blue to support Ukraine. And then when Trump says we're going to achieve peace in Ukraine, they don't stand for that either. Sean Spicer, who, by the way, hosts his own wildly popular show. If you don't already know about it, it's on YouTube. It's on Rumble. It's on Apple and Spotify podcasts. If you want to listen to it that way, it's on the First Network. From time to time, Sean's nice enough to invite me to participate.
Trying to go national. I had hoped to get Bongino's spot. They gave that away. Look, you sit there now all dressed up, your nice tie and coat. And
listen, the landscape is shifting. Like, everybody that's in this business has now gone to work for the White House, but you, me, and Vince Colonnese, I think.
That's true. Well, Larry O'Connor. I mean, we got to take care of him.
And Larry, I know, of course, and Larry O'Connor. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a project of mine to help him because I feel bad sometimes. But yeah, look. We should mention that for people that don't know. Of course, Dan Bongino going to the White House, and it was just announced yesterday. He made it official that our friend and colleague in Washington, Vince Colonnese, on WMAL there, is going to step in and do the national show now. That's a big promotion for Vince. We congratulate him. That's huge. Oh, it's huge. Yeah. It's huge. And I think the nice thing is that Dan, I think it's a smart business too. Dan's been a brilliant businessman as well as a great influencer or pundit, whatever you want to call him. I don't know, member of the movement, leader of the movement. But he's been a great businessman and built an amazing platform. And so I'm glad to see that Vince is stepping in to help.
Sean, the one criticism, and it's a gentle one, and you talk me through it and see if it's justified or not. This tariff business, I get it. It doesn't bother me. But I do know the economy is still shaky at best. People are starting to feel squeezed still. They're seeing the market get a little soft. 62% of Americans are tied to the markets with investments in some form or fashion. And so when Trump says, in my view, kind of cavalierly, yeah, there's going to be a little bump, a little bit of a hiccup, but we can take it. I don't know. Did that land? I'd like to hear him lay that out. I think Americans need to know that plan and have it really well explained why we might have to have some short-term pain for long-term gain.
Yeah, see, I think I'm with you on this. That there's a couple pieces to this, because if you're getting by, which a lot of our farmers are getting by, and they had to suffer through 4 years of Joe Biden and inflation, that if you see light at the end of the tunnel and you say, hey, this is, it's sort of like it's going to hurt for another week or two, that's one thing. If you're asking people to deal with higher prices for 6 months more, that's quite another. We should, Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, is out today saying that we might have an announcement on some of the short-term deals today. But look, I think that it's one thing, like you saw yesterday, the president announcing this superconductor investment from Taiwan, $100 billion, Apple, $50 billion or whatever that was, Honda talking about bringing back the Civic to Indiana so I get it. They're being used as an economic tool. But there's a lot of stuff, particularly in the ag sector, Chris, and this is where, people have to realize that it's one thing if we can build it or make it in America, but like Canadian fertilizer that is used by our farmers and ranchers all throughout the Midwest, 90% of it only exists in Canada. Like you can't get it anywhere else. So it's like you can't then create soil with the potash and the other stuff like here in America. There are certain things that we just can't do geographically. And so it's one thing for the president to fight for American jobs and investment, which he should be applauded for. I mean, the number of investments, I mentioned a few of them, SoftBank, another $100 or $200 billion. That's massive. And the president should be applauded for that because he has shown tremendous leadership bringing jobs and investment back to America that's going to pay dividends for and it's the cool thing about it, it's all private sector. This isn't government giveaway money like Biden did. This is real and substantive. It's going to create good paying American jobs. And so you should be applauded for that. But I think that we've got to be careful, especially in our ag sector where they've suffered tremendously under Biden, ranchers and farmers alike. And so I do worry that if we're not a little bit more surgical there, right? And even some of the auto parts, I would argue, you look at some of the stuff we take in, there's stuff that we currently don't make in America. And so it's one thing to say, we want you to shift it, but if you can't or you don't, then you're going to end up costing the American consumer and maybe hurting the American worker. Canada's already retaliating, saying they're going to make electricity more expensive in Michigan and Minnesota, et cetera. I mean, they're
doesn't that, it's interesting, if I could, Sean, on that, with other leaders popping off, like Trudeau yesterday, this Ontario guy, we're going to make your energy more expensive if you keep this up. In my view, this is where Trump draws people that oppose him out, and they say things like, we're going to make your energy more expensive. And I think naturally Americans' response to that is, well, then what the hell are we doing drawing energy from Canada anyway? Doesn't Trump sort of force issues sometimes like that?
I'm not an expert on energy sourcing, so I got to be careful on that one. I will say that we do need to sort of rethink how dependent we are on other sources. I don't know if that's just a proximity issue because Minnesota, because of the grid. That's not my wheelhouse. But is the grid such that it's easier to draw electricity from Ontario, if you're in Michigan and Minnesota, than a U.S. power source? I don't know. But I think it does beg the question, what should we be thinking of? The other thing, Chris, I will say is, and I know the president had the best line of the night last night was, we just needed a new president. And I think he's right on that front. But I will say on stuff like immigration and on taxes and things like that, we've got an opportunity for the next 2 years to codify what the direction that the president is taking us in, especially on immigration. He's absolutely right. We have seen the difference of a president, what the leadership of a president can make when it comes to immigration. The border's more secure. People have the word is out, don't come. But I want to codify that legislatively. And I know he was kind of joking about it, but in all seriousness, I want the Republican House, the Republican Senate, while we do it, to say, how much funding do we need for CBP? How much do we need for ICE, USCIS? How many more immigration judges do we need? But let's lock this in before another Democratic president can come in and undo the great work that President Trump has done.
Sean Spicer, tonight, today, this afternoon, I know, well, your show is tonight, but I mean, today, I know you're busy. You got a lot going on. And before I let you run, I've got like 20 seconds.
We do the morning meeting. If you go to my YouTube channel and just search me, you'll see at 9 a.m. every day we do the morning meeting live. We take your questions from around the world. It's sort of the talk radio version of the video. We literally go over the issues of the day and take questions from around the world. And then my show airs every night at 6. Tonight, by the way, it's interesting. I've got Hogan Gidley on, who is a liaison between Trump and Speaker Johnson. So he was in the chamber last night. I want to ask him about these disruptions because Speaker Johnson was a boss man last night. He was ready to go when Al Green stood up. He was like, all right, Boom. And Sergeant at Arms, I watched the Sergeant at Arms kind of come down the side of the aisle. They were ready for this. And that's because I think Speaker Johnson and his team were ready. And I'm going to ask Hogan about that. So tonight at 6,
all right,
we've got him
Spicy. We will see you tonight on your show. Thank you, Sean Spicer. Thank you so much, my friend.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.